Good, good. It was right around this time, 7 years ago, that I was walking through the St. Louis Zoo with my family. My wife Amy is from the St. Louis area, and so oftentimes when we go home to visit her family, we'll take a trip over to the zoo and spend some time there. A couple things about the zoo in St. Louis. First of all, it's amazing. It's one of the largest zoos in the country, and there's a lot of great things there. And then the second thing is it's free. And we're big fans of both of those things. And so we've gone to that zoo on numerous occasions, but I think this is probably the first time that we had been there with all three of our kids. My youngest, Hadley, she was only around 2 at the time, and so we were pushing her around the zoo in a stroller. And on that day, I remember it being hot. I also remember it being pretty crowded. It was a really busy day there at the zoo. And we've been making our way around the zoo for a while. We kind of stopped by and seen a number of different animals. We went over to the merry-go-round and let the kids ride around on that for a little while. And now we had come to this big open square that sat right there next to a train station. The St. Louis Zoo, like a lot of zoos, has this little train that runs all the way around the property, and you can get in that and kind of ride around and see the zoo. And so we decided we were going to take our kids on that train. So we had stopped there in this square, and we get down and we unbuckle Hadley and pull her out of the stroller so we can fold it up and take it on the train with us. And then honestly, I don't really remember what exactly happened after that. I'm sure one of us went up to the ticket counter to buy tickets for the train, and maybe another one of us was helping one of the other 2 kids with their shoe or something like that. All I remember is at one point I heard my wife Amy say, "Where's Hadley?" And I turn around and I look at the stroller where she was just standing, but now she's not. Now she's gone. And I remember kind of calling her name out a little bit, and then I got up and I did this kind of little circle, this kind of 10-foot radius around the spot where we were standing. She's little, and it's only been like a minute, so she couldn't have gone that far. And so I'm doing this little circle around the area, and I'm kind of looking and calling out her name, but she's nowhere in that area. And so Amy and I, we decided to split up, and she headed to one corner of the square, and I went to the other. My mother-in-law was with us at the time, and so she stayed with the older 2 while we went our separate ways looking. And as I walk out to my corner, I'm just calling out Hadley's name as I'm walking. And in between calling out her name, I'm praying to God, and I'm just saying, "God, please, please let me find my daughter. Please help me find Hadley, wherever she is. Where's my daughter, please?" And I'm walking through, I'm calling out her name, and I spend a few minutes over in this area, and I check the whole area. She's not there. So I start making my way back to the center, and I'm just hoping that when I get back, I'm going to see Hadley in my wife's arms, safe and secure with the rest of the family. But when I get back, Amy's empty-handed as well. And it's in that moment that it fully sets in on us that in one of the largest zoos of the country, on one of the busiest days of the year, my little girl is lost. Press pause on that story for just a minute. We'll come back to it. But first, I want to dive into these 2 other stories about lost things, these 2 stories that Jesus tells in Luke chapter 15. And Jesus tells these stories for one very important reason. It's because he is hanging out with people that he should not be hanging out with. At least according to the Pharisees, he shouldn't be hanging out with these people. The Pharisees, if you don't know, were this particular group of people around this time who had kind of declared themselves to be the guardians of religious purity. And they kind of took it upon themselves to walk around and make sure everyone was staying in line, everyone was following all the rules, except for a number of the rules they had weren't actually rules that God had given in his scripture. They were rules that they had kind of made up on top of those rules. And the biggest problem with the Pharisees is even though they wanted to be kind of these guardians of religious purity, the truth was that their hearts were actually very far from God. And Jesus didn't mind pointing that out to them. He had a number of different run-ins with the Pharisees over things like this, and they did not like him very much. And one day, they see him with this group of people, and it sets off another one of those kind of major arguments and encounters we see in Luke 15, where Luke tells us this. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with him." There are a couple things you need to know about this scene. The first thing is this, that this is not a one-time occurrence. That this is actually something we see repeatedly in the Gospels. It's a bit of a pattern that Jesus hangs out with people like this, hangs out eating with people like this. And if you've been in church very much at all, if you grew up, going to Sunday school or youth group, you probably know a little bit of the deal with tax collectors. The tax collectors were among the most hated group of people in this culture at this time, for a couple different reasons. Kind of the basic one is it was kind of known that a lot of these people, these tax collectors, were ripping off people, that they would charge them more than was necessary for the taxes, and then they would pocket the difference. But the biggest issue that people had with tax collectors is that they were traitors. That they were people who were turning on their own countrymen in order to get rich, in order to make a buck. The issue was that the Roman Empire, which had conquered much of the known world and was ruling over this area of Israel at the time, they had people who they wanted to work from. They needed taxes in order to maintain their armies, to maintain their sense of control. And so you had these Jewish men who had decided, we'll go work for Rome, and they would tax their people, take the money from their people, and give it to Rome so that Rome could continue to control the area. Put yourself in the shoes there of like the average person there, the average worker who's just kind of getting by, trying to make ends meet, scraping together a living, and your neighbor down the street decides one day to go work for the enemy. And he goes and starts collecting taxes from Rome, and you just watch over time as his house gets bigger. And his clothes get fancier, and all his things get nicer, and you hate that guy. You can't stand that guy. Everybody hates that guy. But then when Jesus comes to town, he goes to that guy's house. And it doesn't make sense. And not only that, but he's hanging out with all of these people who are publicly known as sinners, drunks, and prostitutes, people who've made one too many bad decisions, who've burned one too many bridges. And not only is he spending time with them and teaching, and that would be one thing, but he's actually eating with them, which was a very big deal in this culture, to sit and eat with someone. You don't do that with just anyone. You only do that with friends and family. To sit and share a meal with someone is to say, you're my people. And when the Pharisees see Jesus doing this, that tells them all they need to know about this Jesus of Nazareth. This is no Messiah. He's not a good teacher. He's not even a good man. Look at the kind of company he keeps. So they attack him for this, and they bring this up, and that leads us to verse 3 of this passage, where it says this, "So Jesus told them this parable." And in this parable, actually, Luke says parable here. He's going to tell 3 parables, 2 of which we're covering this morning, and 1 we'll do later tonight. But he tells us 3 parables. I think the reason Luke says parable singular is because all 3 of these parables are really one story. They're all telling the same basic story. They're all communicating the same point. That point is answering this question: why does Jesus hang out with people like this? And so these stories are designed to tell us something about Jesus, but not just Jesus, actually. If you'll listen, these stories are going to tell us something about ourselves as well. The first story is about a shepherd who is taking his sheep out into the wilderness. He's taking them out to let them graze and pasture out there for the day. And then towards the end of the day, he walks them back, and as he brings them into the pen, he begins to do a quick head count. And at some point, he realizes that one of the sheep is missing. But somewhere over the course of the day, it has wandered off and gone out into the wilderness, which, of course, is not a good situation for that sheep. There are so many dangers, so many predators waiting out there in the wilderness. More than likely, it won't last the night, and he knows this. Second story is about a woman who has these 10 silver coins. They were called a denarius or a drachma, and a denarius was essentially, if you were like an everyday, like a day laborer, kind of the common person, a denarius was the equivalent of one day's wage. And for someone at this status to have like 10 coins, 10 of these saved up, would be a fairly significant savings. Well, one day though, this woman notices that one of these coins is missing. So you have a story about a sheep and you have a story about a coin, but Jesus uses the exact same word to describe both of them. That word is lost. And that is what these people around the table with Jesus are. What Jesus is essentially saying to the Pharisees is when you see them, all you see are tax collectors and sinners. All you see are worthless people, unworthy of attention, unworthy of respect, unworthy of friendship. But what I see is people who are created by my Father, who are loved by my Father, who belong to Him, but that somehow they have wandered off. Through their sins, they have separated themselves from God. They are lost. I think it's worth pointing out here, actually, that Jesus does actually call them lost. Like he is willing to recognize and admit, admit kind of their status. He does not say to the Pharisees, hey, that's judgmental of you. Stop being so judgmental. They can live however they want to live. They're fine. No, that's not what Jesus says. He freely admits they're lost. He will call them in these stories. He will refer to them as sinners. But here's the thing you really need to catch. When Jesus tells this story, He's not just talking about tax collectors. He's talking about us. He's talking about you and I. Because the truth of the matter is, every one of us has fit in this category at least at some point in our lives. Every one of us, you and I, we were made to know the God who created us and who loves us. We were made to be with Him, to be in relationship with Him, to know Him and obey Him and glorify Him. To be with God is to be at home. But that's not what we've chosen. No, instead, all of us have chosen instead to go our own way, to live for ourselves rather than for God and His purposes. We call this choice, we call it sin. And sin separates us from God. Again, this is all of us. Isaiah 53:6 says it like this: we all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned and gone our own way. And this is what we are when we are disconnected from God, our home, our life source. All of us have been here at some point in our lives, but the truth is there are a number of you in this room who are still there today. That if you are not connected to Jesus, if you have never made the decision to commit your life to Him and place your faith in Him, Jesus says that you're lost. I don't know how you feel about that. Might be some of you in here that get offended at that idea. That's pretty judgy. Telling me I don't know how to live my life. Telling me I don't know where I'm going, but my guess is that there are at least some of you in this room that you know exactly what Jesus is talking about. That word, lost, that describes something you have felt inside of you for a long time. This sense of restlessness, this sense that something is not right, that I'm not right. And your heart has been trying for years to find a home, somewhere where it feels right and safe and secure. And you've tried to find it maybe in relationships or in the approval of people or in being a good person or in being successful, but none of it seems to be working. And that's because without God, you're lost. That's actually what this parable tells us about ourselves. Without God, we are lost. You're lost, but here's the really good news. You're also loved. And there's something that this parable tells us about Jesus, which is this: because of God's love, God came to rescue the lost. You are lost, but because of His love, Jesus came to rescue the lost. When the shepherd realizes there at the end of the day that one of his sheep is missing, notice he does not just shrug his shoulders. You go, you win some, you lose some. He doesn't hang up missing sheep posters and hope that someone will see that and someone will be nice enough if they come across the sheep to bring that home. No. He immediately gets up and he tears out across the wilderness, running through forests and valleys and caves in search of that sheep to bring it back. When the woman realizes that the coin is missing, she does not kind of go, bummer. No, she turns the house over in search of that coin to be sure that she finds it. What Jesus is saying through these stories is, that is me. That's why I'm here. That's why I eat with tax collectors and sinners. That is what I have come to do. Just a few chapters later, Jesus will describe His own ministry using these words in Luke 19. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Go back with me now to that zoo. I'm standing there in the middle of that square, and there are no words that have the ability to describe the level of panic that begins to well up in a parent, unless you've been there, unless you are a parent and you've lost a child in a public, crowded place like this. Nothing can describe the way the pit you get in your stomach, the sickness you feel as all these worst-case scenarios start going through your mind, and you're trying to shove them out of your mind. And I'm pacing around the square, and I keep kind of looking and calling, and I'm praying more, but now my prayers aren't even making sense. They're more just something kind of like, God, please, 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 God, please, as I'm just kind of walking around hoping and looking, and still no sign of my daughter. And all of a sudden, this thought occurs to me. And I make my way to the outside of the crowd, and I walk up to this fence that divides, that kind of separates the people from the train tracks there. I remember going up to that, and I look down the line along this fence, and I can look down along the train tracks, and there's a train that's parked right there in front of the station, and it's loaded up with people. It's getting ready to depart, to kind of take off with this group of people. And as I look down the line, I can see all the way at the back of this train, in the very last car, these two little legs hanging out the side. And somehow, my daughter, Hadley, had not only slipped through the crowd, but that she had come up and she had slipped underneath this fence. She had walked along the train tracks all the way to the back, right past all these people. I don't know how they didn't see her, except for that she was so short, I think she was just below their line of sight as she made her way. And now she was there in the back trying to pull herself up into the train car so that she could ride. No one saw her, and in just a minute, this train was about to head out, whether she was fully in or not. What do you think I did when I noticed my daughter there hanging out of that train car? Did I go, dang it, I wish this fence wasn't there? I hope she's okay. Did I go back and I purchase a ticket and then stand in line and just wait and hope that 20 minutes later when I get to the front, she'll still be there? No, of course not. No. Without hesitation, without asking for permission, without anything else, I climbed over the fence and jumped onto those tracks and took off running towards my daughter because my little girl was in trouble and she needed to be rescued, and there was nothing that was going to keep me from doing that thing. And that is what Jesus has done for us. This is why he has come. We all, like sheep, have strayed away, but Jesus is the good shepherd who has come to rescue us, who has come to risk his very life for us. No, not just risk his life, to give his life for us. This is how he describes himself in John 10:11. He says that I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. That is what Jesus did. He came to die so that we could be rescued from our sin and from everything that separated us from the Father who loves us and made us. What Jesus did when he came and he went to that cross is he took all of the sins of the world, your sins and my sins, took all of those sins on himself, and he took the punishment for those sins so that those sins would no longer have the power to condemn you. And then they buried him in the ground, but then 3 days later, he came up from the grave, conquering all death, so that death no longer has the last say in your life. And there are essentially two categories of people in this room right now. There are those of you in this room who know that everything I just said is true. And you believe it, and you've placed your faith in it, and you have given your life to Jesus. And if that is you this morning, what these stories are telling you today is this: your good shepherd has brought you home. Even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Even on those days when it feels like God is distant and he's not listening, know this: that is not true, because your good shepherd has rescued you and brought you home. Even on those days when you feel like you've screwed up too many times and God is sick of looking at you and he wants nothing to do with you, that's not true, because your good shepherd has rescued you and brought you home. Even when you feel like you are completely lost and hopeless and without hope in this world, that's not true, because your good shepherd has loved you and has come for you and he has brought you home. Remind yourself of that truth. Live from that truth every day. But there is another group in this room. There's a group of you in here who have not yet placed your faith in Jesus. You've not yet come to him seeking the forgiveness of your sins. You've not yet chosen to make him the king of your lives. If that's you this morning, I have good news for you. He's still seeking you. To this very day, even if you think you're not worth seeking, even if you think you don't need anyone to come find you, he's still coming to find you. He is still coming to save you and to bring you home. You say, well, how do I know that, Drew? How do I know Jesus is coming to find me? Well, you're here, aren't you? That's at least some pretty good evidence. See, maybe you thought that you were here this week because your friend invited you to come and you really had nothing better to do, and that's why you're here. Maybe you thought you were here because you were kind of bored and a week away at camp sounded kind of like fun. Maybe you thought you were here because your parents made you come, and so that's how you ended up here. But what if something deeper is going on right now? What if God has you here on purpose? What if you're here because your good shepherd is seeking you out? Your good shepherd is calling your name this very week. You need to know this, that if he is coming to find you, he's not going to drag you home kicking and screaming. No. In order to be found, you first have to recognize and admit that you're lost. You first have to recognize that you need someone to rescue. The Bible calls this response, this recognition, repentance. And it literally means to change your mind about the path that you've been walking, living only for yourself, living to do what makes you happy rather than living for the God who made you. To change your mind and say, I don't want to do that. But more importantly, it means to change your mind about Jesus. To recognize that he's not just some good teacher who's come to make your life better. That he's not just some convenient add-on that you can kind of bring into your life, into what you already got going. No, that Jesus is the rightful king of all things, including you. That he is the very Son of God who came to rescue you by paying the price for your sin and by resurrecting from the dead. But he's also the kind of king who comes to us with open arms. And when you ask him to save you, when you ask him to rescue you, you're not going to be greeted by some disappointed look. He's not going to shake his head at you. He's not going to roll his eyes. Well, look who finally needs my help. No, that's not Jesus. He is the kind of king who throws parties when people like you are found. Like a shepherd who brings all his friends together to celebrate because he found his lost sheep, like a woman who throws a big party because she found her coin and brings all her neighbors over. That is what King Jesus is ready to do for you today. He is calling your name. He has come to find you. The only question for you is this: how will you respond? We'll see you guys tomorrow.